Welcome dear students. We are going to start with a new topic, that is heat in science. So let us see further. So observe the pictures given over here. Look at the first picture, the glass filled with water and some ice cubes into it. Now these ice cubes, they are going to turn the water cold, and after some time we will see that the ice has completely melted and it has turned into water. Now why does this happen? This happens because the ice cubes, they are going to absorb the heat from the atmosphere or the surroundings, and they are going to melt, thus converting into water. Look at the middle picture. There is a candle which is burning and you can see hands around it. So they are trying to absorb the heat produced by the candle. Correct? Look at the next picture, the cup with a hot beverage into it. You can see the hot fumes or hot vapors are coming out. So the heat is being released out. So earlier, before pouring the tea or coffee into the cup was cold or at room temperature. As soon as we pour the hot beverage into it, it turns hot. This tells us that the heat is transferred from that hot beverage to the cup. Then we come to the microwave picture given here. In the microwave we have electricity which generates heat, and because of which the object kept or the food item kept into the microwave gets cooked or gets heated up. So again here we have production of heat, and the heat is transferred from the surroundings in the microwave to the food which is being cooked. And then we have the picture of a bonfire. We all know that during winters, you can see many of the places where people have this bonfire just to produce heat and keep themselves warmer. So usually in the cold regions, this is being observed. So all these are examples where you can see heat is being produced or heat is being transferred from one place to another. And because of heat, we see lot of changes around. Okay. So let us see how does transfer of heat take place in any. So look at the picture given here. The blue color balls over here are nothing but the atoms present in any substance. So whenever we start heating a substance, you can see the arrow from below that is showing us the transfer of heat or the supply of heat to the substance. Now first, whichever atom is in contact with the heat source, it will get heated. Can you see in the picture it's turning red? When it gets heated to an extreme extent, it is going to transfer its heat to the adjacent atom, so to the immediate next ones. Then the same happens with the next atoms, and then further the chain continues. So here the transfer of heat is in the form of flow of heat from one point to another. So I'll give you a simple example. Even when we cook, okay, you keep your utensil for heating on the gas, and then you realize first the bottom gets heated and slowly you have the entire utensil which gets heated. So the same thing happens from the base of the utensil to the top of the utensil. Everything gets heated by this flow of heat from one atom to another. Okay. So just now we saw that heat flows from one particle to another, or from one body to another. So let us see what are the different modes of transfer of heat. So we have the three modes, that is conduction, convection and radiation. We will see each mode of transfer of heat, but before that let us see how is heat transferred in solids. In solids we know that all the atoms are compactly packed. Correct? Means they are closely packed. So in solids the atoms don't move from one place to another like in liquids, but they start vibrating on their place. So you can see here there is a metal rod, and when one end is heated with a burner, you will see that the atoms, they start moving on their place, they start vibrating. Once they vibrate, they transfer their heat energy to the other particle, and then it goes on like passing the parcel, and that is how the entire rod gets heated up. So eventually you will have the entire rod which turns hot, okay, or becomes warm. So in solids, this is how the transfer of heat takes place, by vibration, or by jiggling of the particles on their place, and they transfer it to the adjacent particles. So let us see the first mode of transfer of heat, that is through conduction. Look at the picture given here. What do you see? From which bar do the pins start falling first and why? Now first let me explain you the picture. Here we have three metal strips, okay, and each metal strip has some pins attached with the help of a wax ball. So we have a stainless steel strip, we have a copper strip, and we have an aluminium strip. So all of them are of same measurements, same length, and the wax used for sticking the pins on all three is also same. So as we start heating, we are going to see what happens and which one gets heated faster. So we observe that pins fall starting from the end near the burner. So from the left side, it means the transfer of heat takes place from the hot end of the bar to the cold end. So first the pins towards the burner will start falling. This transfer of heat from the hot part of an object to the cold part is called conduction of heat. The pins on the copper bar start falling first. The pins on the steel bar fall comparatively late. Heat is conducted quickly through copper. Therefore, conduction of heat through a substance depends on the property of the substance. So we know that copper is used in copper wires in electricals also. This is because conduction in copper is more compared to any other metals. So the conduction, or how fast the heat will be conducted, totally depends on the substance. So the conduction of heat takes place through a solid substance, shows that a medium is required for the conduction of heat. So unless there is a medium, heat cannot be transferred in solids. Okay. So conduction is seen in solids, and this proves that the transfer of heat in solids requires a medium. Next, let us see how does the transfer of heat takes place in liquids. Look at the left picture over here, left hand side picture. The Bunsen burner is heating the liquid in the beaker. Always the liquid at the bottom gets heated first, and then these particles become lighter and they start moving to the top of the liquid, or the upper layer, and the upper molecules, they come down, and this is how you have a cyclic movement in which the warmer particles, they go up, the colder ones come down, and eventually because of this movement the entire liquid gets heated up. Okay, so you can just take an example of water. When we keep it for boiling, you can see the water at the bottom gets heated first, and then slowly you have its movement of molecules, because of which then the entire water body gets heated. So to see this, whether this happens or no, we have an experiment which is conducted here. using potassium permanganate dye. So in a beaker, this substance was kept in a beaker and then it was heated. Now when it was heated, we could see the colored fumes coming out from the bottom, and the movement was cyclic. Just look at the right hand side picture. So this potassium permanganate, it has the purple pinkish color, bright color. So as it started getting heated up, it moved in a cyclic pattern, which showed that the hotter molecules, they move upwards and the colder ones come down, and the process goes on. And finally you had this colorful cyclic pattern shown in the beaker. So this cycle is called convection current. So the movement of hotter areas in a liquid can be seen using potassium permanganate dye, and this cycle is convection current. So here can you use the concept of density to explain how the convection current moves? So even density can be used to explain this, because as the particles get heated up, they become lighter and hence they move up. But the colder particles which are at the top of the liquid, they have become heavier. They already have the same density. So they come down, again they get heated up, they go up. So like this, the density is changing, and because of which this convection of heat takes place. Okay, or the convection currents are formed. So this was convection, which is seen in liquids, and even convection requires a medium. Observe the pictures given here. In these pictures, you can see the left hand side, a person is trying to take the warmth from the bonfire, and the right hand side, we know that our earth gets all its energy from the sun. Now this is also transfer of heat, correct? Now in this transfer of heat, what is the medium over here? In one case, we have the left hand side, we have the gas, which is the medium, and the right hand side, we know that the sun's rays, they are coming through space. So there is vacuum, right? So this transfer of heat takes place without a medium, and this mode of transfer is known as radiation. So transfer of heat that takes place without the medium is called radiation, and this mode of transfer of heat is seen in gases. Okay, so the medium here is through, it is mostly seen in gases, and the transfer of heat also takes in vacuum. Okay, so this mode of transfer is known as radiation. So three modes of transfer we have covered: conduction, convection and radiation. Let's quickly have a look at all three of them in the next table. So conduction is the direct flow of heat through a material resulting from physical contact. Convection is heat transfer between a surface and the adjacent fluid. So it can be gases, air or liquid, and by the flow of liquid or fluid from one place to another induced by temperature. So any transfer of heat through a liquid or gas by movement of the particles from one place to another because of the change in temperature is seen in convection. Now one word over here which I would like to emphasize on is fluid. By the flow of fluid. Now what is the difference between fluid and liquid? Fluid is a common term for anything that flows. So even gases and liquids, both will be called a fluid because both of them flow. Okay, so remember, convection takes place through fluids, means both gas and liquid. And the last one, the radiation, through electromagnetic radiation. So these are waves. Okay, so no medium is required, no transfer medium required. It's the transfer of thermal energy through matter of space by electromagnetic waves. So these are waves which are taking the heat or transferring the heat. So this is just a recap of all three of them. Next we will see one experiment to see the effect of heat. Let us see what is explained in this activity. So let us observe what happens when solids are heated. So look at the left hand side picture. So before heating the ball, it's a metal ball and it passes easily through the ring. It's a metal ring. Now after heating the ball, you observe that the ball doesn't pass through the ring. So if it doesn't pass through the ring, means the size has increased. So this proves that solids expand when they are heated and they contract when its temperature is decreased. So when the temperature increases, they expand, and when the temperature decreases, they contract. Okay. So this property in solids is also known as thermal expansion and contraction. Let us see some more examples which will explain us this in detail. Now, have you ever thought that when railway tracks are laid in sections, why are there so much of gap in between? Now, this is because during summers, the metal strips they tend to expand, and because of which there can be overlapping of the tracks which can lead to accidents. So, there is some gap which is left between the railway tracks. So here, even one more reason, the railway sections are held together by fish plate and fastened by bolts and nuts through oval holes. Now this is because again, so that if they expand, the track can just move ahead and backward. Okay, so there is some gap which is left, so the the fish plate can move along because of expansion and contraction. So to avoid any kind of accidents, this precaution has been taken while preparing the railway tracks. So this is a one of the daily life example. Even the electrical wires, you always have some extra wiring which is being kept with the electrical pole, because again in winters we have contraction and summers we have expansion. So these wires, we can see sometimes they are just hanging down. This is because they expand in summers because of heat, and in winters they contract on because of the decrease in the temperature. Let us see now expansion and contraction in liquids. We have taken a beaker here filled with water. In that we have placed a round bottom flask. Okay, this flask has a glass tube which is being placed into the flask through the rubber cork. Then when we dip the glass tube through the rubber cork, we see some level of water, the liquid level. Then some ice cubes are added into the water beaker, and then we see that the water drops down. So in the tube you will see the level of the water has gone down. This is because the liquid has contracted, or it shows contraction when the temperature decreases. So I'll just read. Then the flask is placed in a beaker of ice water, and this time the liquid level is seen to drop. This is because the colored water in the flask contracts when it is cooled by the iced water. So same thing here, liquids they contract on cooling and expand on heating. Now let us see what happens in case of gases. Now expansion in gases, when gases are heated. when the molecules gain more energy and they move faster and further apart. So they are moving away from each other. This causes the volume to increase. Whereas in contraction of gases, so if the gas is cooled, they move slower and have less energy. They are close together, causing the volume to decrease. So contracting means they'll come together, and that is why the volume will decrease. So we have seen now expansion in solids, liquids and gases. Let us see further now. Look at the picture here. This is a Scottish scientist named James Dewar. Now he has helped in the invention of thermoflask. So he invented the vacuum flask. Through his work in cryogenics, he identified a need to keep a chemical placed in a flask at a stable temperature. To do this, Dewar placed a glass bottle in another larger glass bottle and evacuated the air between the two bottles, and this is how we had the invention of thermoflask. So it was basically one flask kept inside the another, and between them there was vacuum. So there was no medium in between, because of which he could maintain the temperature of the chemical placed in the flask. So let us see how is a thermoflask made and what is the mechanism behind it. How does it work? So look at the structure and the working. We start from number 1, a screw and a stopper. The outside plastic or stainless steel case, usually nowadays we get stainless steel, and the screw or stopper is nothing but the cap of the thermos. The outer layer of glass coated with reflective material or stainless steel in unbreakable flask. So in the earlier days we used to have this glass coating inside, but because it is breakable, nowadays we have stainless steel body inside the flask. Fourth one is the gap in between the inner and the outer layer, which is empty, which has vacuum, means no medium, no air, nothing into it. The innermost layer, the fifth layer, is of glass or stainless steel in case of unbreakable flask. Nowadays we rarely see any flask with a glass inner layer. Okay. Sixth one or more supports keep in a vacuum container in place. So you have this inner container also attached to the outermost body so that it doesn't move. All these layers are fixed. They don't keep on moving inside or dangling inside. And seventh one, additional insulation reduces heat losses and cushions flask against impact. So the outermost layer, it prevents um, the inner layer from any kind of heat loss. So if you touch a thermos from outside, it will not appear hot or cold depending on what you have kept inside. You won't realize how hot the liquid is inside. Okay. So this is the outside insulating cover, or you can say the outside layer of the bottle. So this is the diagram shown in your textbook. So it has a silvered glass surface inside. It has a spring or a holder which holds the inner layers. The outside can be a metal or a plastic jar. Then the inner layer is a vacuum layer, means there is a gap in between. Below we have a rubber support just to hold the inner layers. Then inside it depends on hot or cold liquid, whatever you are filling in. And then between this vacuum layer and the outside layer, which is seen from out, you have a insulating material which does not allow the heat to escape out, or the outside heat to enter in if it's a cold object. So let us see the function. So I have just explained the parts. Now let us see how do they work and how do they help. So function of the thermoflask: when a hot substance is placed in a thermoflask, the heat going out gets reflected due to the shiny surface of the inner tube. So it gets reflected inside only. Hence the heat is not radiated. Neither conduction nor convection of heat occurs because of vacuum. We know these two modes of transfer, conduction and convection, they require medium. Since there is vacuum, these two mediums cannot work. As a result, heat is not transferred to the outer cooler region and is retained inside for a longer time. Still a little heat is lost from around the lid and by a small amount of conduction through the glass. Therefore, the hot substance does not remain as hot after 2 or 3 hours.